Hello and welcome to Wisdom Wednesdays. Today's episode is number 14 and we have Dr. Finegrit here to tell us all about it. Darren, off to you.
All right, welcome back everyone. Great being here with you again on this Wisdom Wednesday. Beautiful day here in Minnesota. I hope all you're doing well out there and looking forward to work with you today on color filling. It's a very popular topic. People are always wanting to color fill, right? Add more value to your product, make it more distinctive. So we're going to cover a lot of that in this beginner video. And just want to again welcome you to the 14th episode. It's been a great ride thus far. We're not quite to the top of the roller coaster yet, though. We're working our way up. We got a lot to go yet on these videos. Get more education out there, more tips and tricks, and looking forward to keep going with these. So without any further ado, we're going to get right into the video with Laura, and then we'll do a question and answer portion right afterwards. And looking forward to those. So we'll get started. Enjoy the video. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wisdom Wednesday. Dr. Finegrit for all of you once again. Thank you for joining me today. This is a very hot topic based upon a lot of feedback over the years teaching seminars. And that's color filling. People like color, right? You want to make a colorful world out there. A lot of different objects you can color to give it more perceived value. I'm going to cover a few of those in this beginner portion. If there's more questions further down the road, I can do more of an intermediate or even an advanced one for you on color filling. But again, this is just a beginner session to kind of cover the basics to get you in the market. So here's what we're going to be covering. Here's a simple color fill. We call it tombstone color, which is one color on a wine bottle. Just a mask on there, sand carved, cleaned, and then color filled. So that's a quick, easy way to add color to your different barware items. So you're basically adding, several dollars of value there just to add a little color, right? Customers like that and appreciate that too. So. And then here's some examples on my right. The Moscow mules are a very common item to sand carve. This is without a color fill, which you don't necessarily have to color fill all the time. Like on crystal, for example, I don't recommend color filling crystal because I think that kind of lowers the value, in my opinion. But Moscow mules are the same. I think it looks fine without a color fill. The Yetis, when you sand carve those, that's how it comes out. Nice gray matte look. I think that's fine as well. So those are some examples of just traditional beverage items that you don't need to color fill. And then you got some items on my left, which are traditional items that you may want to color fill. Here's a bamboo beverage item from JDS Industries. If I sand carve that image, it would be like a white layer that would reveal after sand carving, which wouldn't really present very well on a light surface like this. So I'm going to color fill this with a black marker right here. These are my little Sharpie oil-based markers. I'll cover more of that in depth as I get into the process. And then I'm going to be using a polar camel from JDS Industries, which is powder coated. Put another mask on there, sand carve it, and I'm going to color fill it with our Belton oil-based enamel. So this is what we're going to be covering here today in the beginner portion. And I'm going to go through all the steps from A to Z. So stay tuned. All right, the first example I'm going to have is our bamboo beverage container from JDS. First thing we do is remove the cap, set that aside. That way you have an inside and something to grab onto. It's a lot simpler to do it this way, cleaner as well. We're going to have our resist. Considering I'm not very going deep on this, I'm going to use a 3 mil resist. It's a R3 3 mil self-adhesive film. And then the smart jig. We need that as well for this experiment. This has the wire wheels, the squeegees, and I added Sharpie markers on this design. And the reason for that is when you work with anything like this, it's hard to tell if your image is going to be straight. It might be, crooked. And there's equipment out there that can get it perfect for you, like a laser or devices like that. But here's a simple little way to utilize your jig. So what you do is grab 2 Sharpie markers, have 2 squeegees, and basically just, I don't have it this way because it's got the rubber on the bottom, so I just flip it upside down so it's easier to spin. And then you just basically move it up to the markers and like this, and then turn. Okay. Just a small little mark there, so you can tell, you know, what's the straight and narrow area, right? So the next step is put that on your smart jig, and then you're going to apply the stencil. Now, I'm going to be doing this upside down just for viewing purposes, but now you have a little marker there to know where you're at on the beverage. So just like anything else, you apply your. Now, here's a tip too. This surface is pretty slick. It's lacquered, very slippery. All right. So some of the film may not stick very well, okay, initially. And there's a way to make it more sticky. But another trouble is you might have an issue getting the carrier sheet off this. So a trick there is to have a hard substrate nearby, like a piece of glass. And what you do is apply one edge and then flick it. And then you're going to see the carrier come right off right here. Okay, so you got a good starting point. Okay. Very important, especially if you're doing porous items like brick or frosted glass. That's a very neat trick to use. All right. So now I'll bend it over sometimes too, so I know which end is going to peel. And you're going to apply it down. Use those registration marks and squeegee. And again, we have our starting point now. There you go. First, we do the bamboo, the R3 photoresist film. So I'm blasting at 25 psi. I'm also using 180 silicon carbide abrasive. That's the abrasive I use for every project we've done through the Wisdom Wednesdays. So 180 is a Finegrit, so that's why we use 180. So go ahead and just go blast at a very slow motion. This is critical. Like when you do leather, you're doing objects that are very slick. Go at a very slow motion. That abrasive is not going to remove the mask when you go at a slow motion. See how it's starting to turn white there? That's the color you'll get naturally. Okay. Now I'm going to show you how to color fill it to give it darker color later on. You're just going to run your nozzle across. What I like to do is just run across the whole image. I'll speed it up a little bit. Just go over the whole image to remove the membrane. Again, this is what you do on very slick surfaces. Just go at a slower motion. The abrasive is still working just as good as you would going fast. Actually, in this method, it's a little bit quicker because the abrasive is working the whole time instead of moving off the mask. So you're kind of like in a white albino deer at this point. I'm going to, if you're ever curious, you can kind of go over a little bit more, see what kind of texture you're going to get. Every wood's a little different. So usually I do small little circles. It's kind of like an orbital sander. If you do a lot of sanding on wood, you know what I'm referring to. I'm an orbital sander right now. So you get the grain look. See the grains you're starting to see in this bamboo? All right. So again, little small circles kind of removes the surface a lot easier and cleaner. So smaller circles like an orbital sander. When you're done etching, it looks like this. So you have the white grains, you got the darker grain. That's the natural parts of the wood in this case. Now, to color fill it, you're gonna have dust on there. Okay, so you gotta remove that dust, otherwise the dust is gonna adhere to the paint and it'll blow off later, right? So you gotta clean it off. So I have an air gun in the machine, and you basically just hit it with air. Good, let the air do the work. Now all the dust is off. Now you got a nice textured surface for the paint to adhere to. So that's kind of what this wood texture is going to be like moving forward. So this is good for leaving it as a two-tone, which is a glossy bamboo surface, to a matte finish of like a white albino kind of look. But I'm going to show you how to color fill it in case you want to give it a black appearance or gray or red or whatever you want to put on there. So stay tuned for the color fill. All right, so here's our polar camel that's powder coated. So I got again, 3 mil resist on here. I'm going to lower air pressure because I want to go slower across my image area so I don't get blow-offs. So I'm at 25 PSI. 180 silicone carbide abrasive once again because that's a fine grit. I'm going to hit this and going at a slower pace, you get better results. So here's all that image is coming out right away on my first pass. That's from the aggressiveness of the silicon carbide. One thing I do want to mention, if you do a lot of polar camels, made out of metal, right? Any metal object for that matter, you want to ground yourself. Put a watch on your hand, run a wire to your watch, the machine, and then run a wire from your machine to an outside conduit pipe or a water pipe. And so that way you don't get these not electrical, but they're called static discharge shocks. So if you do a large amount of metal objects, you're going to start feeling a shock or two. So if you're doing 1 or 2, you're fine. But if you're doing like hundreds of these a day, you definitely want to get a static discharge kit. Again, that's really easy to put on your machine. It's going to save you a lot of trouble down the road. So, no tip there. Slow motion right across. The abrasive is working. But with like this, it would take a lot longer. See how it's scattered? Okay, so you go slow motion, it comes out a lot better. Okay, it's all cleaned out. There you go. There's your black, there's your gray, matte finish. That's your sandblasted polar camel. We're going with the paint pens initially. I tend to use these a lot in the schools I teach because it's not messy. It's not an aerosol, so you don't need to wear a respirator. It's not an air pen, or I'm sorry, like an airbrush where it's investing hundreds of dollars into a piece of equipment. So it's very cheap marker to use, and you can do multi-colors. The one thing I want to mention on these, Sharpies work really well, but the tip, okay, you'd have to go like this the whole time, all right? That's not very efficient. With these paint pens, what you do is when you push on it down below, it kind of runs, okay? It's a lot bigger mark as you would with a Sharpie. The other part is you want to look for something that says oil-based, okay? Oil-based. That's critical. Oil-based means it's not affected by water. Also, it means it's more opaque, so it's one coat application. And also the oil-based refers to more durability, all right? So I use strictly oil-based markers. I'm going to color this one black, okay? So again, this is how it looks close up without being color filled. Some people might like that look. So you can leave it the way it is. or you can put a slight color in there. The other options for paint would be aerosol paint. You could also use a wood stain, oil-based wood stain. Once again, works best because it absorbs into the surface a lot better. So I'm just going to go ahead and start coloring. You can see the paint kind of adhere. Okay. Now I wouldn't be doing this method if I was just doing one color applications. Okay. Or if I was doing a large production job, I would not do it this method. I do an aerosol paint or an airbrush. Okay. This is what I use for hobbies, where I need to do a little bit of one color, a little bit of another, and so forth. This is a brand new marker, so I got to get it to flow a little bit as I move. You can start to see it come out a little bit quicker now as I work with it a little bit more. But you'll start playing with it, see how it kind of flows now like a river. So eventually it'll get to that method for you. Okay. And as you can see, it's not sloppy, right? It's not running everywhere. So it's rather easy to use, and it's not hard and very clean. So that's, I can keep doing that, but I want to show you just the other colors, how easy it is. If I wanted to put, make this area blue. I have a lot of people that do this in my classes, a lot of artists, they'll color, like a Yeti or a polar camel, just like 8 different colors. I mean, they love doing this method because the paint doesn't run. Okay, very nice. Some people are artists as well, so they like to be creative. So there, just to kind of show you an example of how you can just put colors right by each other with your pens. See how you got it right next to each other. So, and it's oil-based, so it's going to be very durable and one coat application. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this up and show you the final result. There's my black. This is really good for fine detail areas. Get in there. Right now I'm kind of giving it a little more texture, kind of like when I'm doing like a sponge paint. Gives you a little different texture than just this traditional spray. You can let it run too. What I'm going to do in this case, I'm going to leave the eyes unpainted. And I'm going to make it a Christmas mug. Everybody know who that is? Maybe I'll give him some, well, no, I'll leave it regular eyes. So very fine detail work, multicolor, all in one step. That's what I like about the markers. No aerosol, no special ventilation required. Works really well for, gifts, personalization. There you have it. So let that dry and then peel it off the stencil. All right, so here's our polar camel that was sand carved and cleaned with an air gun prior to going to the booth here. I'll be using Belton Molitor paint. You get it from artprimo.com. I use it a lot. This is a oil-based enamel. It's a low volume spray, so you don't get that heavy wet paint on there that runs. So I like that feature on it. It has many colors, and it's a quick drying paint. I can usually get my paint to dry in about 10 to 15 minutes, which is very, very quick for an oil-based enamel. Those of you that know painting out there. So without further ado, I'm going to put the polar camel in my paint booth. I get these on Amazon. And I'm going to run the filter on the back. It's going to pull all the aerosol away from me. So I have to breathe in all that. I'm wearing gloves as well because it's an oil-based enamel. I don't want to get it on my hands because it's hard to get out later on. So it's good to wear gloves when you're working with oil-based paints as well. So here we go. The trick with doing any color filling is you don't want to do one heavy coat. All right? That's going to take forever to dry. It also runs. So if you're doing a vertical object here, it's going to run like crazy if you do heavy coats. So you do one light coat like this. You just kind of hit it like a trigger. Yeah. Yeah, you just got to give it a little more color as needed. That way you're not over flooding it and making the image look really ghostly. So yeah, this is a good coverage, I think, in this case. So I think we're good. So we're going to let this dry for about 5 minutes, and then we're going to peel off the mask. All right, so here's a quick summary of the color filling. Again, this is a beginner session. We get more advanced if you want to down the road. These Sharpie markers, I get these from Michael's or Pearl's or any craft supply shop. Sometimes you can get them or find them online as well. So these are really good. I know some of you use Rub and Buff over the years. That's a wax-based product, but it's not good for beverages, okay? Because beverages get wet. The wax will run right off. So make sure it's an oil-based marker that is going on a beverage item that gets wet. The other items for painting was the Belton. I use Belton Molotov Premium. It's a little bit taller can, a little bit less volume of spray, and a little more durable. I've used that as well over the years, but this brand will work just as well. So here's my Yeti. I did a wine bottle with the white paint. So that's your Belton durable oil-based enamel. And again, if your color filling is not your thing, just leave it etched. It's a beauty as well and high perceived value. So just want to wish all of you well with the color filling. Make sure you ask us questions down the road. We're in this together. We have reps waiting to hear from you on the phone call every day. So call us, email us, give us your feedback. You know, we'll work together, right? So we're gonna make money and make a good product. So again, thanks for joining me today, and we'll look forward to the next time with you on the next episode of Wisdom Wednesday with Dr. Finegrit. Thank you for watching, and blast with confidence and have a blast, will ya?
So nice video there, Darren. It looks like we already have a few questions waiting for you even.
All right.
So
I'm ready.
Well, Peter here would like to know, what is the best paint to use for wood?
Great question out there. I did use Belton paint and oil-based markers. Okay, those are paints, enamels. Most of the time on wood, I would rather use a wood stain. Oil-based wood stains work really well with that. It absorbs well. It doesn't flake off like a paint might do. So oil-based stains work really wonderful on wood. It absorbs just like a deck stain. Any of those kind of work just fine too. Be more creative that way. People might think it's kind of cool that you use the same deck stain on your, on your deck as well as on your beverage. It matches. They go hand in hand, right? So yeah, so deck stain, oil-based enamel, and yeah, there's a lot more creative ways to do it out there. So
all right, that sounds pretty fun. When I guess sourcing your supplies, paint, things like that, any suggestions on where to pick up some of these items, such as the polar camels and things like that we've been using in the show?
Yeah, that's a great question. When I do these videos, a lot of the questions afterwards are, where did you get that polar camel? Well, I'd say JDS Industries is a good source for that. But then it's like, well, what about the wire wheel? What about the Smart Jig? Those are products from Iconics Imaging. But if you get into like the painting that we generally use on different products, that's where it gets to be a wide range of options. Like the Belton Molotov that I used in the video, you get that through artprimo.com. It's a company out in Washington. You can buy the clear coat finishes. You can buy over 250 colors. It's a remarkable company to work with and a great paint. There's One Shot by oneshot.com. That works really well on wine bottles and beverages as well. It's a brush on paint though, instead of a aerosol. But a lot of times I work with customers that live in remote areas where, they need the paint that day and they don't have a source locally, like a Sherwin-Williams or Primo, Thick Blick, something like that. So in that case, I just say, hey, go to, your general paint store, get any oil-based enamel, whether it's Rust-Oleum, that's a good oil-based enamel. The Krylon Professional is a okay brand. It's water-based, but it's very, very sticky. And what the big tip there is, you can use a primer or a matte clear coat on the product prior to color filling, and that's going to help the paint adhere better. Because what you need is a textured surface. That's the primary goal. So sandblasting gives it a really good textured surface, a lot of teeth for the paint to grab onto. But if you're in a pinch and you can't get the paint to stick, put a clear coat on beforehand. Just make sure it's a matte finish. But again, name brands, yeah, any of them will work out there. Just a matter of what kind of prep work you need to do. I do try to stay away from the Walmart brands. I think they're generally just for painting that'll last a month or two outside, right? I mean, it's not durable. So I'd stay away from those kind of lines. But yeah, I would just say call questions. Every product's a little different. Every paint's a little different. And I've done a lot of R&D over the years on painting. So I might have a few ideas.
Good to know. All right, we have some other questions in here. Peter, as well as Icon Art Stencil, would like to know what the best film to use for color filling is. And I did mention that we used the R3 in this episode. However, there are some other films, as Peter has mentioned, R5, Ultra Peel, or Rapid Mask. What's your take on that, Darren?
Yeah, the R3, a lot of our customers rely on that product for all their work, whether it's beverages, wine bottles. We do have a 5 mil for the wine bottle, actually. It works a little bit better. But as far as other films, the Ultra Peel is our go-to film for color filling. We did add a little bit different matrix into the film to make it a stronger backbone, more integrity, so it comes off in bigger pieces. You saw in the video, the R3 came off really nicely in big chunks, but that's on a smaller, Yeti. If I was doing a bigger object, big bottle, 2 foot tall wine bottle, the Ultra Peel would be a better fit for that. because it would come off in huge pieces. So yeah, I mean, our laser tapes work well, like our Blazer Orange. That's a wonderful color fill film. And rapid mask, you can get that to work very well for color filling. So yeah, a lot of our films are designed for color filling because that's what our customers want to do. So we listen and we deliver. So.
All right. Let's see. Michael here says he had trouble with stain following the grain on bamboo under the mask. It is a really open grain. Have you had the same result, and do you have a remedy?
Yeah, that's a great question, Michael. That's why I like to use those markers or a low volume paint, a little bit thicker so it doesn't run as much. But to answer to his point, I have a lot of customers that do bricks, and they'll put the mask on, get it nice and tight on there, paint it, but then they leave the brick vertical so the paint will run, up and down, or just down in this case. So that will actually get underneath the stencil. So the trick there is once you get done once you get done sandblasting and removing the dust with your air gun, put a clear coat right over it. Spray the whole thing. You can use hairspray, which adds a little bit more adhesive. What that does is it creates an invisible shield, like a coating in all those crevices. So that way, when you apply the paint's going to stick to the clear coat and not run underneath the mask. So it's an invisible shield. So that's the trick I recommend on any kind of item where you're worried about a little bit of a run on your paint. But like I said, if you use like a one shot or your Belton line, those are thicker paints. So they are not going to bleed either. So if you can thicken your paint, that would help too in your situation. So either the clear coat or thicken your paint is my two recommendations on that one.
Right. Good tips. I hope they certainly help Michael out.
Yeah.
Let's see. Dawn here wants to make certain. Do we peel the mask after the paint is dry?
Great question, Don. There's a variety of ways you can do it. The best way is when you color fill, you let it sit and dry for a few minutes, maybe 10 minutes. Depends on the coating dry time that's on your paint can. I want to peel it when the paint is rubbery or sticky, okay, but not sticking to my hands. I want it just kind of a tack. That's the best way. And that's on any paint on the market, okay? That's including Walmart brand paint, okay? So when it's sticky and rubbery, it doesn't break and flake off. So that's the best way to do it. But a lot of times people don't know. I mean, humidity conditions, that's going to affect the dry times. So you're not going to sit around and wait for it to get tacky and then peel it. So generally, I like to recommend let it sit on there for an hour or longer. Again, read the instructions on your paint can. Some may say 10 minutes. But I wouldn't let it sit on there more than a few days in most cases, because then it just bonds to everything and it's hard to get it, it's a little more brittle. So it's hard to get it off. So yeah, earlier the better. But again, you don't want it to get, on your hands, of course. So that's a great question. Krylon paint is 10-minute dry time. Belton paint is 10 minutes. One shot is 2 hours of touch time. So 10, 10, and 2 hours. Rust-Oleum, about 30 minutes. But again, that varies based on humidity. So I think I answered the question on that one, but I can go in more detail if there's a follow-up question on that one.
So currently, we haven't had any further people chime in with some extra questions, but we still have a little time. So if you have some more questions, feel free to comment. We always love to hear from you. And definitely, thanks for viewing. Definitely like to give a shout out to all of our subscribers and viewers. And yeah, but it looks like our questions and comments for the day have definitely slowed down. Do you have any further tips you would like to give, suggestions of fun products that might be great for color filling or anything like that?
Yeah, this was a beginner type of introduction. I'd like to get more into advanced topics like the multicolor, maybe on a wine bottle, maybe on a stone product or a brick. So yeah, I'd like to get more into that down the road. But yeah, fun topics to color fill. It's a large variety, too many to list right now, but a gourd, I've color filled a gourd before. I've color filled leather, color filled my shoes. I use shoe polish for that to color fill. And that's where the fun topic comes in, is how many different color options are there in sand carving? And it's really unlimited. I have people that use rust. They'll actually spray rust into the etched area, and it creates a rust effect. Like a tarnish kind of look too. There's people that do acid etching. There's people that do I'm trying to think offhand, candle wax. Candle wax is a good color fill because it's a wax base, just like rub and buff. Any kind of running material that sticks to your common objects at home that you have to clean. You're like, oh, somebody spilled the candle. It's on the countertop. Oh no, it's stained. Okay. Those kind of products you can use for color filling. It's a really fun world. You can start thinking about that. Like coffee, that stains. Red wine. People use red wine. They'll color fill their wine glass on the inside, and then they'll fill their glass full of red wine every day, and then eventually that red wine stains into the etched area. So it's a red wine color fill.
Sounds like you can get a lot of variations and kind of the sky's the limit on what you want to do with it.
It's whatever absorbs into a towel absorbs into a paint, or rather into a sandblasted surface. So yeah, that's where it gets to be fun. You could be, I talk about the 250 colors from Belton. Yeah, if you're doing red wine for color fill, or if you're using soil, dirt, I mean, it depends on the object, of course, but if you're just being creative, nobody could match you. They're gonna be like, what, red wine? Yeah, I'll just go on the computer and find a match. That's not the case. You got to find something rustic and unique. The customer, they're a big red wine drinker. They're going to see that and go, I love that color. It makes me thirsty. Boom. That's a sale. It's right to their heart. They're going to love it, and they're going to want more. So yeah, it's something like that. Just finding unique items that stain, right? And a lot of you have seen that over the years. Your clothes stain, your countertop stain, your wood stains outside. So, but that's just in the rustic world. The production type of paints, like I mentioned, the Belton, the one shot, those are going to be much better off down the road.
Speaking of more production and stuff, do you have any tips on color filling metal? And we also have another question after that too.
Color filling metal. I mean, they got Sturmark out there for laser engravers, right? But it's a very messy process. So we get a lot of questions with sand carving metal. So yeah, you could sand carve stainless steel, leave it the way it is, or you can add a color. And it's the same way we did in the video. Just leave the mask on. Use an automotive paint like a Melco or Eastwood, some kind of automotive paint you find at Napa. Automotive I like to recommend because it sticks on metal cars, right? So it's good for your metal beverage holder. So yeah, spray with your black paint, just a very light coat, and then let it dry, and then peel off your stencil, and you have a great durable finish. It's not going to wash off. It doesn't wash off in your car, so it's going to stay on your beverage.
Sounds pretty good. All right, so our last question here is from Michael. And it says, have you found some powder coatings too tough to blast, and does it go by color?
That's a great question, Michael. I love that because when I taught classes up to 4 months ago, I would actually take all the colors from JDS Industries and test them. And in my classes, I would actually take them for the very first time and blast them. I did no R&D, no prior experience And I did that to show people that you can do every color with a matter of just a little bit technique training, maybe a little bit different grit, maybe a different mask. Now, to answer this question, are there different colors that are easier than others? Absolutely. Okay. Black, the black one I did in the video, very, very easy. Okay. I used 180 grit. I blasted at 30 PSI. Blasted very nice. Okay. Now, if I get into other colors, I did a red one. Okay. That comes out really easy. Stainless steel obviously works out very well. But the colors I have challenged, let me get to the ones that do work first. Purple, I did purple many times, works awesome. We did well over 20 purples in my last seminar, the Camel line. We did a lot of orange, and we did a lot of black. We did a lot of white, and that's all I can remember offhand. But I do remember the ones that were challenging, and that's where Michael's getting into. The sea foam blue is a challenge. The yellow is a challenge. And I've had some like the deep orange. Okay. And what I do, the way I explain it is it's not based on color. It's actually based on the thickness of the coating. Okay. And what I do when I teach classes is I'll actually go and show you this. You just kind of prick your finger along the edge here. Okay. This is a very thin coating. Okay. This is a Yeti. Yetis are very easy to sand carve because they have a thin coating. But you just prick the edge. Okay. Same thing on these. It's got to prick the edge. Feel that if it's thicker than the thickness of your fingernail, you're gonna have a challenge. And that's where I've run into challenges with the seafoam blue because the thickness of that coating is thicker than my fingernail. So if it's thicker than your fingernail, I would move on to a different one. And the challenge or the struggle that our customers get is sometimes those colors are different coatings on every piece. So everyone takes a little bit longer to blast or a little bit shorter. So again, just stick with the blacks, the whites, purples. I've had nothing but success with those. That's a great question. I love that one. And I'd like to work with all of you on more of those challenges in the future too. Send me a picture, send me your struggle. I'll give you some tips on how to get that achieved. Okay. Great question. Thank you for asking that one.
All right. Well, that was our last question we had some time for. So I'm going to let you go ahead and wrap it up and say a little bit about next week's. And, thanks for watching, everyone.
Yeah, next week we're going to cover general products. So looking forward to seeing all of you. Actually, I'll be on the road next week, so I'll not be doing a live Q&A. But we're going to be showing a video that myself and Peter Norman did for a trade show association. Peter Norman's the well-known person on our videos for the Will It Blast videos. So stay tuned for that next week with Peter Norman, the Will It Blast video guy. And I'll see you the following week with some more videos. And looking for your suggestions, your ideas, and just to keep working with all of you and get to that top of that roller coaster. So until then, everyone have a great rest of your day, lots of confidence, and also don't forget to have a blast. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye now.